I think it's adult more by the subject matter than it is for language or violence. And the subject matter itself is more in innuendo than it is sort of blatant, in-your-face kind of shocking things.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually it's a kind of play that requires a lot of thought, but it definitely carries a lot of adult themes, and so that's why we kind of discourage.
Yeah, there are a lot of laughs that go with it.
Oh, definitely. Beth Henley writes in a really interesting style, and in sort of the Southern Gothic style as a whole is just, you find a lot of comedies like farce or more American comedic writers sort of write in a style of, okay, here's the situation, here's the setup, and then comes the joke, and then the punchline, and then it settles. Beth writes in a little bit different style where it's sort of a lot of the humor is in the situation, in how the characters deal with the situation in obscure ways, rather than sort of dialogue-driven comedy. But it's, very thought-provoking and very, very witty.
That's fantastic. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you end up directing the Miss Firecracker contest?
Originally I did a show with Atlantis Playmakers back in 2001. I wasn't a member of their company, but I was exposed to Kimberly at the time, the artistic director. And we did a couple projects over one summer and sort of went our separate ways, but kept in contact. I always kind of had a good heart for the work they were doing. When I first was exposed to Atlantis, they were still in a very early stage where, like I said, they were just doing one summer production a year. They had studios of kids and kids and kids, just lots of kids. And what they found, I guess, is their plan sort of was, as these kids got older, they would be able to incorporate them into their repertory company and eventually establish a large repertory company. And that's, 10 years later, that's kind of where we're at now. I became a member of Atlantis Playmakers in 2003. Then 2 years ago, I was hired as the resident director, which requires me to do a couple different projects per year with them.
And so how did you get into directing?
I think I've always, since I was very young, I've always sort of had an eye for that, or an idea that that's what I wanted to do. I started acting when I was 7 years old. In fact, I probably did more acting between the ages of 7 and 17 than I have as an adult. But I always found all the different aspects of theater to be very intriguing. As I sort of started putting the acting to the side and pursuing the directing a little bit more, I had opportunity to work under some very wonderful directors. David Zoffley, who used to be at Merrimack Rep as well as Middlesex Community College. He ran the program there. James Haney, Professor James Haney, who kind of took me under his wing. It was the idea of taking what they taught me as far as being a director and what I watched them do, and trying to incorporate it into some of the things we were developing in Atlantis Playmakers. So at Atlantis, it's kind of, it's like a true rep. Like there's a lot of theaters that talk about being repertory theaters.
What do you mean by repertory theater?
A repertory theater is usually built on an existing company members that all belong to that theater, and they sort of cast and light and design and build amongst the company members. Merrimack Rep, which is a fine theater, really hasn't been a repertory theater for a long, long time. And most of the repertory theaters were established as repertory theaters, but no longer are. We've sort of, Kimberly's had the idea of building within, like growing our rep from little kids into adults. And so when I was looking at becoming a director, I was trying to incorporate the idea of what her sort of mission statement was with what I wanted to accomplish as a director, and it kind of led me into a lot of different paths. Most regularly, I guess, I got involved in a lot of technical theater. Because
When you say technical theater, what do you mean? I mean,
well, you see, I mean, everything that happens in a production, so much of it kind of goes unnoticed and is sort of taken for granted by the audience, which is exactly what you want. You want the audience to come in and feel like, you know, they're at the place that the show is taking place, where it's set. In a lot of the technical theater is revolving around like accomplishing that mission, as far as set designing, scenic painting, lighting, sound, all kind of considered technical theater.
okay.
But I always felt like the one sort of thing that I found when I got into starting to do some technical theater was a lot of the directors, though they had basic knowledge of technical theater, they had a hard time communicating what they knew as far as technical to the technicians. So I really wanted to become very proficient in a lot of different aspects of technical theater, which has been really, really gratifying working with Atlantis, because I get to wear a lot of different hats. I get to do a lot of design work, a lot of sound construction, lighting. Yeah, so it's neat. Very neat.
So how long have you lived in the area for? You were saying?
The first time I came to New England, believe it or not, was back in 1997. I did a show out on Cape Cod at the Orleans Fine Arts Academy. Wow. At the time, it was a summer show. Didn't really care for Cape Cod in the summer all that much, but had the opportunity to come up this way and up and through New Hampshire and into Maine and Vermont, and kind of fell in love with it at the time. But I was, you know, and as a professional actor, you're sort of required to go wherever the work takes you, and it took me a few years to kind of get back here. I think my first actual residence was in 2001. I lived up in New Hampshire for a little while, and I moved to Lowell in 2003. I was working for Merrimack Rep in Middlesex Community College, so Lowell seemed like the most convenient place.
So the Miss Firecracker contest, you sort of identify that as a Southern Gothic.
Yes.
And as we were talking, what I was thinking about from my experience of living in the South, and especially the deep South of Belzona, Mississippi,
Yes.
is that all of life is a Southern Gothic that's acted out in the South.